here. We're here with the Reverend Stephanie Menete, who happens to be an accomplished educator and someone who has been dynamically involved with, I would say, being a curator of traditional gospel. You know, the fact of what happens in our relationship with the presence of God in our lives is that we have to manifest the manner in which we present ourselves in teaching His Word. And gospel music really does make that example work. Absolutely. And I think that is really important that we recognize and we honor those individuals who have been pretty much on the front line of ensuring that, you know, popularity is very important. And I was telling a friend of mine that one of the reasons why I had to really get more serious about what I'm doing in this role is that if I'm going to get investments, people have to know who I am. And if they don't know who you are, they will limit their involvement with you. So what I felt that it was very important that I get an opportunity to really bridge a relationship publicly with you. And most people don't know about our relationship and how well we have had a strong understanding of what's important about our lives, and that's to exalt the name of Jesus to everyone who knows us. And I'm just very proud and happy to have you, Stephanie Menete, with me today. Welcome.
Well, I'm excited to be here. I'm blessed to share with you. I love your passion and excitement, and that's really what we need in these uncertain and difficult times. So those of us who are on the front lines doing ministry and looking out for our brothers and sisters, we need that passion and excitement to just to continue to encourage them to continue in the struggle. So I'm just excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you. You know, and as often as we do talk, I'm not really sure I understand enough about you. Like, how did you grow up? I mean, were you always in the church?
Well, you know, my mother, who went home to be with the Lord on March 28th, was a staunch Christian woman who was brought up in the ways of Christ, and she took me to church. She was a singer, and she enjoyed singing gospel music, and she started singing with Reverend Lawrence Roberts, who was a gospel music pioneer back in the day, and I would accompany her to church. Also, my grandmother, Hattie Molly Tucker, used to take me up to the Mount Zion Baptist Church in North Newark. So many of my early days were spent at Mount Zion, and then my older years at the First Baptist Church up in Nutley, where Reverend Lawrence Roberts was the pastor. So yeah, church is an intricate part of my life. I don't know where I would be had my mother not taken me there and the ways of Christ poured into me.
Looking at it in regard to that reality that many of us who have had an inspiration to find the guiding light, so to speak, was brought in an early age to know the disciplines, in particular, what God really wants from us, and then He reveals Himself, obviously, because you're being faithful to the discipline. Why is it so important to you to provide the opportunities for others to be able to transcend into a relationship of knowing what God is in their life?
Well, I think part of that is, you know, I also come from a family of community organizers, and we are just so concerned about our community, and also the Bible, which talks about, you know, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in jail, you visited me. So those things are just embedded in me. I'm concerned about what people are going through. I know what it is to grow up and really not have what everybody else has. You know, I've been a product of community organized programs. So I thank God for those opportunities. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gotten the help I had going to college had I not been involved in community organizing. And I want to make sure that people understand what's available to them and also fight to keep what's available to people who don't have. So I have a burning desire to make sure that people's lives are better than they were. That's my call. That's my call. And the gospel preaches that we have to be concerned for the least of these. The poor will always be with us, but we have to be concerned about them. We can't just allow people to just wallow. You know, they've got to have an opportunity. They've got to see hope, and that hope is in Christ, and we are His handiwork. They see Christ through us, through our hands, through our feet, through what we say, through what we do. They see that light. So that's what I try to do.
As an educator and knowing significantly how individuals are being influenced in relationships and knowing how to be able to bring out their true talents, have you been able to recognize many of the ways in which it's important for us to influence our youth to know how to use their talents in a way that it can help create an understanding of what our heritage is?
You know, I've been an educator. September will be my 29th year. And I decided, Herb, to take my students out of Plainfield. I'm in the Plainfield district so that they could see how other people live, what other people do, what other people say, and use the gift of singing to be a blessing to them. And I think that when you begin to use your gifts and talent to bless others, you get a self-awareness of really who you are and what your call is. I may not be able to look at you and say, okay, this is your call, but when you begin to work in that gift, if that's your gift and you begin to use it, God begins to reveal to you what your role is and the way you should go. So I think by me interacting with young people, pouring into their lives, it has changed so many lives. And they've come back and said, Ms. Minity, thank you so much for taking us here. Thank you so much for saying this to me. Thank you so much for doing that for me. And now that they are grown, they've become great citizens. You know, they've become empowered from those experiences.
And knowing that many of the situations that occur in regard to helping an individual grow is through positive exposure and really directing them in areas that would be supportive towards their maturity. Gospel in itself was not embraced in the education forum. How did it really get to the point where it became an institution in the educational environment?
Well, I think it's inevitable because when you look at jazz, when you look at the blues, when you look at R&B, when you look at any genre of music, the roots of those are gospel. I mean, the blues are simply sad songs. The gospel is just good news. So it's the same type of motif, but just a different way of looking at it. You'll find the elements of improvisation in those genres, which is what gospel is made of. You'll find melisma, which is what the kids call riffing, singing several notes on one syllable. In all of those genres, you'll find syncopation. You'll find call and response. These are all elements of African American sacred music / gospel music. So it was inevitable for it to come to pass. And then people just said, "Look, we got to have it." You know, people, you know, when they hear my choirs, we can sing a piece by Johann Sebastian Bach, and they'll say that it sounds like gospel. And I think that it's not because we're not singing Bach, but because of what they feel when we're singing Bach. So I think it's a style. I really don't even know how to explain it. It's a feeling. I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it. But
I would think that is because of inherently how cultures exist. And one of the things that I do want to share with you a conversation on is how a lot of resistance in terms of the way in which African Americans are portrayed in regard to the reverse psychology of discrimination, that when it comes down to individuals who have been part of our cultural heritage, that it's just inherent of our lifestyle and it's personified when we are celebrating and especially when we're in praise, whereas other communities, other cultures have the same kind of reflection. You know, when you talk to an individual who comes from Israel, there is a certain cultural heritage that comes out of them whenever they're doing anything celebratory or if they're entertaining. And it's the same thing if you talk to somebody from, Ireland, or if you talk to someone who comes from, Spain, or if you want to talk to an Italian. Again, culturally, we have been disconnected with an identity, but because it is so natural, you can identify with an individual who comes from that particular lifestyle.
Sure. I think because the Middle Passage experience, and every year Jubilation, we do from the Middle Passage, an African American journey, where we talk about that whole trip from Africa to the Americas. That is going to, that emerges, but people don't really understand that that's what that is. Mm-hmm. You know, when you hear gospel music, when you hear those wails, when you hear those cries and those hollers in the music, that's what it comes from. It's something, it comes from something deep down within. It's cultural, you know, and you just can't get away from that because that's who you are. And I just feel that we need to really embrace who we are, not try to get away from who we are, but really totally embrace who we are. And I think that once we do that, our true meaning, our true destiny, our true light will come out, and people will be able to see that.
You know, when you speak about Jubilation, and it is an institution within itself, because you do more than just entertain and sing.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that you would bring up that that project, you know, the way in which you really are educating people about the cultural heritage of African Americans. Jubilation was really an evolution. Okay, and especially
and still is.
Yeah.
It still
Why don't
is.
you share with us, you know, some of those nuances, like maybe a history of Jubilation?
Well, you know, Jubilation started when I received I was working for NJPAC as an artist in residence. And I received a call stating that they wanted to create a choir just for one time to sing with Pastor Shirley Caesar for the Martin Luther King program. So I suggested that we meet, and then we decided to do auditions for the choir. And we had at least 250 people come out and audition. And out of those 250 people, 120 people were chosen to be a part of Jubilation. And we sang for that Martin Luther King program. And when we got together, we knew that this was not going to be the last time we were going to sing. So we continued to stay together, and it has now been, this will be our 13th season. This September will be our 13th season as Jubilation. In 2004, I was led to leave NJPAC, not because they weren't treating us well, but just so I could pursue some other things. And unbeknownst to me, Jubilation decided to do the same. So we became an independent entity, and thanks to God, we've now reunited with NJPAC, so to speak, and it's our official home now, along with the D.K. Tucker Center. So that's a brief history of Jubilation. During that time, you know, the Lord has allowed us to really just break some barriers. I mean, we were the last choir to record with the incomparable Ray Charles, and he wanted to do a gospel project, so we did that. That was a Christmas project. We sang at the U.S. Open, and we'll be doing that again this year. Some of us will be doing that again. I mean, we've done some incredible things. Tours of Japan, tours of Russia. We've been all over the world. American Idol Gives Back, the Super Bowl. Last year we won a Grammy Award. So, and Queen Latifah has been a great blessing to us. She's just a love. We just love her so much.
Well, she's also part of the family.
Yes, she's
part
of. Yes, she's part of my. She's part of my family.
Yeah.
Yes, her mom.
And, you know, it's interesting to the extent that a number of individuals, local people, educators, are, you know, involved with certain responsibilities of services in our community.
Listen, Jubilation has educators. It has CEOs. It has professors. I mean, technicians. You know, lay people, students. I mean, anything you need,
And
you can find it in Jubilation.
It's great to hear that there has been a cultural outreach in regard to, you know, like you're saying, after the period of time that you have now established yourself your own identity with this magnificent ensemble, that the opportunity now to bridge with programming and financial support coming from the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and how it bridges the community center. Now, the Donald Tucker Community Center, the mindset. Certainly, one of our political pioneers traditionally who really made people understand that politics is everything. And it just depends on which level of politics that you want to place it in. But, and I often share with people that, politics is when you get up in the morning, what are you going to put on?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
your uncle, the Honorable Donald Tucker, influenced me a great deal as well. Obviously, him being a man of, true interest and wanting to be black.
Oh, listen, I tell people my Uncle Donald was probably blackest person in the world, not just America. And I miss him so much, Herb.
Yeah.
It's not a day that goes by
Right.
when I do not think about him, his influence on this city and on this state and on the lives of people. And I really want to do my best to help to keep his legacy alive. And I know that his legacy was his concern, even besides his own health, his concern for his people.
Right.
And he wanted to make sure that they had a seat at the table. Not only a seat, but somebody speaking for them at the table. And he spent a lot of his time just fighting for the rights of African American and poor people. So I just want to do my best. He's poured so much into me. I'll never forget when I was going over to Ghana. In 1998, I went to Ghana, and Uncle Donald had been to Ghana several times. He was a Nana Kofi there, and he had adopted a few villages and schools. And he had me to come to his house and actually sit me down and talk to me about what I was going to experience in Ghana. And I mean, okay, I'm going to Ghana. I got that. I was all excited. But he said, no, I need you to understand what you're getting ready to do. I need for you to understand what you're going to experience and what you need to get when you go there. What you need to take back. What you need to take over. I'll just never forget it. It was incredible.
He really laid down?
He laid down everything. And when we got there, I took students over, actually. Yeah, I took the choir over. And we took school supplies. We partnered with St. Anne's School, which is in Kumasi, which is 4 hours away from Accra. And they knew Uncle Donald. They gave us a big reception with drums and food and dance and poetry. And they were just so excited for what we brought to them. So, I mean, I'll never forget that experience. I plan to go back to Ghana before this life is over. That's one of my dreams, to get back and take my choir. Love to take Jubilation over to Ghana to actually get to the motherland and understand. When you step off that plane, you understand, hey, you're home.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, as an artist, because I did photography during his celebration of triumph, and it was more than a spectacle. It was an education because you learn exactly what the cultural heritage of African American people are, and I think that that's a tremendous disadvantage that we have in our institutions today. And the educational system today seems to bar us from having the opportunity to make it mainstream relationship of education in public school systems. Is that why what you're doing is so important?
Absolutely. I say again, Uncle Donald mandated that when he was in the New Jersey State Assembly, that all schools in New Jersey should teach African American history. I don't know, people, I guess, are not enforcing it. But it is a mandate in the assembly, and for me, I teach more than music in my classes. If you sit in my class, any of my students will tell you we celebrate Kwanzaa in my classroom every year. We celebrate Kwanzaa. We do African American. We deal with African American issues. I'm big on freedom schools because I don't believe that we have enough freedom schools going on now. I want to create more freedom schools so kids will know their history, because I truly believe if kids know their history, their attitudes and their actions will change.
And I think that is that, and you and I, we can talk on this level, that's that invisible slavery that we have been unable to overcome simply because of many of the other priorities that are brought into our existence, economics and all these other nuances, drugs and things, the killings in our streets. Community is so much more important.
Oh, yes.
Us finding ways to deliver a concept of a village actually being the concept to raise a child. We speak about it a lot, but we don't really put together projects. And obviously, you know that I've been spearheading a way in which we can develop those relationships through these kinds of conversations, which are very helpful for us to be able to reach out to our community. We're here now with the Reverend Stephanie Menete, who's sharing with us many of the things that have been really important for her to be able to have an advantage of doing outreach and developing ways in which we can influence young people, especially in our culture, on what's important about their heritage and their identity. We've shared some conversations before about the outreach of yourself and the Jubilation Choir and some of the things that are really important when you're dealing with individuals who are less fortunate, who have been in incarceration. You recently did a performance at a women's detention center.
No, Essex County Youth House.
Oh, at the end. But you did tell me about...
We're going to...
You're going to do?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the Essex County Youth House. Why did you choose a youth detention center to have a concert?
You know, God had impressed upon me to deal with our incarcerated brothers and sisters. So the first open door that we received was to go to the youth house. So that's why we went there, and I had to really just prepare my choir to go there, because when you go into the youth house, you're really up close and personal with demonic force. You know, I mean, of course, the demons are all around us, but, you know, these kids, they are incarcerated and they're going through things, and Satan has come in and dealt with them, you know, or sometimes they may not have done anything and just been put there, but still Satan's hand has been involved there. So when you go inside, you really have to be prayed up and ready to minister to them. So when we got inside the youth house, at first the kids were not really receptive. They was like, oh yeah, here they come. You know, they come and they just sing to us, and you know, that's gonna be about it. You know, we're just gonna sit here and listen because we have to be there. But after the testimonies of myself, some of the choir members that have experienced those kind of situations or been through some stuff that they could identify with, we begin to see them break. We begin to see that hardness and that resistance leave. And by the time we finish singing, preaching, and praying, you know, I asked the chaplain, I said, can we embrace the kids? You know, because you have to ask their permission. And she said, sure. We began to hug and love on those kids, Herb. And when we began to love and hug on them, we saw them break, and we were able to then pour into them. Listen, this is not what God wants for you. God has something better for you. You know, you have to deal with this right now, but after you're released, after you get out, listen, we want you to turn your life around. And you should have seen the response. They were like, yeah, I know this is not what God has for me. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for helping me to understand that this is only going to be a short time. Thank you for helping me to hold on just a little while longer. It was so powerful. We all left there. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. And as we left, we could hear the kids looking at us out the window and banging on the window, you know, saying goodbye, goodbye, thank you. So it's just, you know, we plan to go back. We really plan to go back, but we had to be prayed up to go in there, because you just never know what you're going to meet. You never know what kind of battle you have to do, and you just can't go in there not prayed up. You have to be ready to deal with what you're going to experience.
Right, because, you know, even in as much as we try to put professionalism in front of lifestyles in terms of knowing how to do outreach, many of those young people who have done the wrong things actually probably didn't have anyone to give them proper direction. And sometimes just a hug means a great deal more than having a person locked up in a corner and then, you know, really having to come to an relationship of maturity in an isolated way. That can become insane for them.
And also, you know, who they're around that can influence them. So Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about it now, and I mean, it continues to bring tears to my eyes because, our young people want that.
Right.
They want structure.
Right.
They want discipline. They want love. And I'm talking to the parents now. I don't have any biological children of my own, but I've taught thousands, and they have to have that consistent structure, discipline, and love. Consistent. A lot of times our young parents, we think that we can buy our kids. We think that if we just give them, that they're going to be all right. No, you can give them all you want, but if you don't have that consistent discipline, that love, and that structure, giving them is not working. Giving them is just giving them. It's nice to give them, but it's better to provide that.
Right.
Listen, I love you.
Real,
I love you.
Clear definition of commitment.
Yeah.
Because again, as a father, because I used to have a problem hugging my daughters just because of what I know society has been able to distinguish it to be, and I would do whatever I can to try to be supportive to my wife in most instances. I always tell my kids, like, they would say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" I said, "All right, did you call your mother? Did you do your mother? Did you do your mother?" And it was always about your mother, your mother, your mother. But then I did learn that. Every now and then, just giving your child a hug and saying, "I love you." It's as simple as that. You'll see a tremendous change in
And
their
maintaining
attitude.
the standards of expectations.
Yeah.
Look, listen, I tell my nephew, this is what I expect. Now, he may not make it all the time, but he knows what I expect, and he does not want to disappoint me.
Let me ask you something. As a sidebar and as an educator, do you believe that it would be very beneficial? I had a meeting yesterday, and I told the forum that our parents are getting younger and our students are getting older. And in most instances, what happens is that a lot of parents are withdrawn because they are not very astute to know how to help the student. Would a parenting workshop identifying ways in which we can tool them to know how to help their child be effective in the system today?
I've seen people try to do it, and the parents just don't come out like they should. It would be great if they would come out,
So
or
they
even
do
if they were
exist.
mandated. We have parenting
projects,
workshops in
really?
Plainfield.
Really?
But what I think is so helpful is for people to mentor. Adopt a family. You see a young sister with her kids struggling, the parents have to say, okay, I need some help, and not resist people trying to help them. But I think it's more effective for people to just mentor. Just pick one person. I'm going to work with this family. That to me is more effective than the parenting workshops, because for the most part, they don't really come out, Herb. I mean, I wish they would, but the statistics show that the attendance is low. And most of the parents that come are really the parents that don't need
Right, the ones
the
that really
parenting
are aware
workshops.
of what's happening. And I guess that would be obviously another way in which we can evaluate it and take it from that level and see how can we use it to manifest more participation, because there obviously is a reason why, and it may be because of them not feeling that they would fit in because of their incompetence, and we need to help strengthen them in that regard. But when you talk about mentoring, you're really talking about another level of expansion, and as I understand it, you're going to be expanding Jubilation a bit by bringing on new individuals in a mentoring aspect.
Yes.
Share with us about that.
I love my choir, but the average age of my choir is probably 40 to 45. And I do have a significant amount of seniors. And let me preface this by saying I love my choir, but I saw a need for us to get younger.
Okay.
By me working with teens every day, and the energy and the stamina, and I saw a need for us to get younger. So the first thing I did was I auditioned for younger singers. And I'm doing that now. And I also felt a need to create a leadership summit of young people from ages 18 to 30 who I could talk to about forming a group to network with each other, to talk about college with each other, for them to do mentoring of younger kids, and to also just get together on a 6 to 8 week basis to empower each other so that they might cement each other, because our young people are all over the place. They're scattered all over the place, and they need to know that there's power in unity.
Right.
And if they would just unite and put all of their gifts, each of them come with different gifts and talents, put them all together and find out how those gifts would work for the community. That's really what we're trying to do now. And I'm excited. I'm going to meet with them tomorrow at my house, and we're going to begin to network. You know, I still hear Uncle Donald talking, you know, get the people together, you know, empower the people. The center is there for us to utilize. So we're going to do that. And
now, this open summit, the relationship of you institutionalizing a method in which you can be able to embrace individuals who have a need and a concern for being committed. How many of them are there?
Well, we are looking for 25 to 30 tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this was an open invitation, or
These were young people. Jubilation does a scholarship every year, an education scholarship, where we award a book scholarship to somebody who's going to major in the performing arts. This year, I really put a call out that I wanted to see more young people there, and they responded. So the young people that came to the brunch were invited to come tomorrow.
Okay.
To start with the youth summit, and I have some adults who will oversee them.
Okay.
Because you know I'm doing 10,000 things,
Right.
and I wish I could do it full time, but I have some people, some adults who are interested in that type of ministry, so they will be there tomorrow to oversee.
And and that's a very good model, because you have to take the existence of individuals that you have had a concern for, and then they will be the ones who are going to show the kind of existence of interest.
Right.
And now you're not just there talking to people to get them involved; they are ready to be involved.
Right.
And the engagement is so much more of a potential, especially those of you who are doing outreach and have organizations that you're really working to improve upon. You're doing a great job in that regard. If you have a consistent nucleus of individuals to work with and to be able to build from it, and you can really see some real good accomplishments from that aspect.
And my nephew, who is an aspiring musician, and he's 19. He will actually host tomorrow.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm going to have him to become, put him in a leadership role, and whoever emerges out of this group that who also can be a leader will use them as well.
Using alternative methods in regards to helping improve educational lifestyles of our youth is something that you have also shared a passion about. Now, when we talk about the Children's Defense Fund and dealing with it from the perspective of their creation of the Freedom School model, you're really ambitious about coming up with your own.
Absolutely. We need modern day freedom schools. That's just the bottom line. We don't have enough. Programs are being cut left and right. Kids don't have anything to do but stay on the internet, text, and I want them to have a place where they can come and they can learn as well as enjoy it. So we want to create this type of environment.
Which is really important, and one of the things that a number of individuals don't understand, that the faith-based institution within itself, a number of churches are looking at ways in which they have dynamic opportunities to draw individuals, and not just into the gospel, but into new lifestyles that will be sustaining and will give us a future leadership. And I think that that's the direction that the CDF was really trying to encourage. Let's do what we can to create that future leadership, because they're dying. And they're dying off of cultures changes that really we were not the ones to establish.
Right.
And looking at it, in those kinds of attitudes, it's really important that we continue to nurture and find concepts that are going to be helpful to get youth in an environment that's going to be conducive towards generating that kind of a lifestyle that's going to be important for the future of our culture. One of the things that I do recognize also, and you talk about technology, is technology has evolved so rapidly. And
I'm still trying to catch up.
I was looking at one of these TV shows, how to are you as smart as a third grader or something like that?
Yeah.
And one of the questions came up: when was the cell phone created?
And what was the answer? I don't know.
It was in the 80s.
Wow.
You imagine that?
Wow.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You got to think about that.
Yeah.
That at one point, these little bitty gizmos that we have nowadays that we can do without were even in existence just about 20 years ago, 80, 90, 20, 30 years ago. But one of the things that I do recognize is that we keep trying to hold on to legacy systems. I mean, I agree that the library is a wonderful concept that people can go and open up a book, but now we have these tabloids that will give them a larger array of opportunity to learn from. Those are the institutions of tomorrow. My daughter does her homework on her smartphone. And it just blew me away.
Well,
and she's an A student.
Of course.
Let me emphasize that.
Yeah.
It isn't like she's just doing this and she's got this little bitty thing. She's an A student doing homework on a smartphone.
Well, we are digital immigrants. Anybody born, I think after 1983 is a digital native. I think that's it. Which means if digital natives they're born into technology. We have to learn it, because technology was not invented when we came along. So I tell anybody, if you can't communicate with this group unless you are technologically savvy to some extent, because they are blogging, they are texting. I had to learn how to text. I mean, I had to buy the right phone. I didn't even have the right phone to text with. And anytime I have a technological problem, I have to call my nephew, to set up stuff. Yeah. So it's important, and as educators, we have to move past just standing at the blackboard and teaching. That is no longer the way of teaching. I mean, I come to work every day with my laptop, and I use smart boards. I use Promethean boards. I use all kind of technological, innovative strategies to have my kids learn. If I want them to sing a certain way, now I can just go to YouTube and say, you need to sound like that. Whereas before it was harder for me to portray that. If I want to teach them about a certain musical, we can go online and actually watch some of the excerpts from the musical. So this is the kind of age we're in, and I encourage anybody, if you're going to teach young people, you've got to be technologically savvy to a certain extent. And if you don't know it, go take some courses. There are people teaching that kind of stuff now that can bring you up to snuff real quick.
Bringing everything up to an understanding on your relationship in terms of being a professional. The Jubilation Choir has been invited to be able to do the StarSpangled Banner at the opening of the U.S. Open.
It's the close.
Oh, it's the closing.
Yes,
okay.
It is the closing.
Share with us exactly how now you're going to have to prepare for that.
Wow. Well, the hard thing is that I cannot bring the entire Jubilation Choir, and that has been, it's difficult for me as the director to have to make those hard choices. But I realize that a lot of these opportunities, you cannot bring 60, 70, 80 people. You have to bring 15, 20, 25. So that's the difficult choice. But I thank God for my choir, because they understand that, and they realize that when even a few of us go, we're all representing Jubilation. So I have to make those selections, and then we'll begin to rehearse. Actually, we're going to back up Queen Latifah, who is, again, our love, and we're grateful to her for that opportunity. But she's going to sing my arrangement of the Star-Spangled Banner, which is probably one of the only gospel arrangements of the Star-Spangled Banner that has been written. So we'll prepare.
And we know Queen is a little jazzy, too.
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah. So we'll begin to rehearse. We'll have our own separate rehearsal where I'll tighten up the choir and band. Then we'll go over and have a rehearsal over in Flushing Meadows, and then we'll do it. So we're actually also preparing for a CD release.
Okay.
And that'll, Just Like Sunday Morning is the name of the CD, and that'll happen sometime in November. So a lot of things going on.
Now, you've been also attracted to take on the legacy and become now, hopefully, the spiritual leader of the church that your spiritual father used to pastor.
Well, that still is in the. We'll see what happens.
Right.
The church
but
has
you still
to.
have the potential.
Oh yeah, the opportunity is there. You know, it's something that the Lord told me to pursue, because anybody who, I believe, who's an effective pastor, never wanted to do it.
Right. You always
It's not
call,
something that you pursue.
But you have to.
I mean, to say,
have
well,
to,
I'm going to be the pastor.
You maybe never want to do it, but you
Right.
have to want to do
But
it.
the Lord spoke to me and said
Yeah.
to do that. So I did apply for the position, and I've been preaching there frequently. And if the people vote for me, and I'm called to be there, I'll look forward to, re-establishing that church as the great beacon that it is. First Baptist Church of Nutley is a historic church. Many of the phenomenal gospel songs, live recordings. The first live gospel recording was done at the First Baptist Church of Nutley. People don't know that.
No.
James Cleveland and Reverend Lawrence Roberts collaborated for the first live gospel recording in history.
Wow.
And it was done at the First Baptist Church of Nutley. I mean, the recording Peace Be Still was done at the First Baptist Church of Nutley. It has a tremendous legacy, and it is a beacon for the gospel. The Reverend Roberts preached the unadulterated gospel at that church, and many lives were set free, changed, and delivered. So I really would like to reestablish that legacy. It's the only black church in the city of Nutley. So it just has such a rich heritage. So I look forward, if God says so and the people vote for me, to working there. But if not her, but if not, I mean, I'm okay.
Well, as a
I'll be
fact of the
fine.
matter, you after 29 years of educating and
Sure.
playing football, you're going to be retiring. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that your plate is empty.
No, we have so many things that I'm involved with. I thank God for, right now I'm an associate minister at the Community Baptist Church in Inglewood, where Dr. Lester Taylor is my pastor, and he's a phenomenal leader, prophetic leader. I'm pursuing my Doctor of Ministry degree at the United Theological Seminary in Dayton, and that school has produced some of the greatest orators and educators and preachers of our time. So between all of that and jubilation, my plate is full.
And working with Dr. Taylor with
Absolutely.
the Baptist Convention.
Yes, North
and,
Jersey.
Being involved
Yes.
as one of the leaders, in relationship to being an advisor for its musical legacy is very important, very, very consistent, and it takes a lot of energy and I guess a tireless attitude.
Listen, I'm like my Uncle Donald. People who knew Donald Tucker, he never sat still.
Yeah, he did.
Because there was always something to be done.
Yeah.
And I just thank God to have that spirit in me, and I'm always moving. I'm always working toward trying to make people's lives better and enriched. So I thank God for the opportunity, and until He calls me home, I'll be doing that.
Well, let me tell you something. Sister, pastor, girlfriend. It really is a pleasure, and I really had a great time, and we want to definitely ensure our viewers that we're going to be consistent in working with you and having some other opportunities where we will be able to showcase especially many of the attitudes and activities that you're going to be doing in focusing on the more relevant issues that are important to our community and what we need to know. We Care
Absolutely.
Partners is your public awareness community resource, and we We want to make sure that we keep that pedigree, and we want to be part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I'd love to bring the young people back, maybe the next time, and you can talk to some of the
Or maybe we'll
the
come
leaders.
to you.
No problem.
And we'll set something up.
No problem.
And really make a nice, and we'll talk about this offline, but I think it's really good. We do a focus group.
No problem.
And hear from them
Absolutely.
exactly what they
That's
think
the
is
key.
important about it.
I believe that's the key.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Sister Menete, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right.